Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this book review is about to begin. And if that wasn't a big enough hint, yes, today's book review is going to be The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I can probably already tell you this isn't going to go well because I barely followed what was happening when I read it, so... And for today's wine, we have a nice sweet red by Sutter Home, mainly because it matches the book, but also I guess this is kind of a love story and sweet red and love. I haven't even opened the wine, but it was $6.49, so it's probably going to be 5 stars. I was right. It's a 5 out of 5. It is sweet, but not as sweet as the wine from the last book review, so 5 out of 5. So this book is about Marco and Celia. However, it does not start there, so I guess I should start from the beginning because that's how books go. Sometimes. Not all the time. I feel like I've done a lot of reviews for books that bounce back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and nothing's chronological, which really messes me up. But we are not talking about why I messed up. We are talking about The Night Circus. Le Cirque de Rêve is a circus that arrives out of nowhere, seemingly, and is only open at night. That's why people call it The Night Circus, because Le Cirque de Rêve, love, it's French, and The Night Circus is just 10 times easier. Prospero, the enchanter, is just finishing up like his act and whatnot, and so after the show he goes back to his room office and finds a 5-year-old girl sitting in a chair. Said girl is Celia Bowen, who has a letter from her mother who committed suicide that Prospero the enchanter is actually her father, and so now she's his problem. And obviously Prospero is not this guy's real name. His real name is Hector, and he is not interested in Celia whatsoever until she starts moving around teacups with her mind, like all telepathically and stuff. So he decides that he is going to train Celia in all things magic, and then he arranges a meeting with his arch nemesis, another magician. He arranges a meeting with Mr. A.H. because they are, like I said, enemies, and they want to do a little competition. So each one of them picks a candidate, or a competitor, if you will, and for Hector, that is his daughter Celia, because he doesn't really care about her other than she could win and he would be better than Mr. A.H. And so they agree on it, they shake on it. Mr. A.H. does some like magical thing and puts like a little circle thing on Celia's hand, and so now she's a competitor locked in. So now Mr. A.H. has to go find himself a competitor, so he goes straight to the orphanage, finds himself a boy that he keeps in an apartment isolated unless he is bringing him somewhere to observe magic and do training that way, but otherwise the boy is kept in isolation. At some point, I believe when he's 19, the kid still doesn't have a name, so he names himself Marco Alistair, and I don't know where you come up with a name like that on your own, but that's his name. And so introducing Marco. But then Marco decides that he's not going to be alone. So he meets this woman, Isabel, who's like this mysterious fortune teller, and she moves in with him. But now let's talk about Chandresh Christophe Lefebvre. That rolls off the tongue. He is this theater guy, but he's also obsessed with the circus. And so he throws this huge dinner party because he has an idea for a circus that no one has ever seen. They've already found this really cool contortionist. Her name is Tsukiko. Tsukiko. I don't know how you'd pronounce it. But now they need an illusionist. So Celia Bowen is there somehow. And so is Marco, because Marco is Chandresh's assistant. And so Marco's watching Celia's audition and he's like, oh my god, that's my opponent. Don't ask me how he knows it, he just knows it. So Marco tells Isabel about Celia, and she volunteers to travel with the circus to keep tabs on her. Now it's opening night of the circus. They have this cool bonfire that's like multicolored, I guess, and one of their performers goes into labor, and this is only important because she has twins, and she names them Widget and Poppet. And like they're pretty cool, I guess. Widget has a power to read people's like pasts, and Poppet can see the future, so they're pretty cool. Anyway, Marco does some weird like magic over the circus, and he has to constantly erase Chandrish's memory, and I don't know why. All of this is quite confusing, but I guess it's to keep the fact that he put magic voodoo stuff on it a secret. There are a lot of characters in this novel. I can't keep track of half of them. At any rate, some of them find out that they're not aging right, so they tell someone, and then one of them jumps in front of a train, and that's that, I guess. But one character who is somewhat relevant, his name is Ethan, and he knows all about the competition between Marco and Celia, and so he decides he's going to create like this tent where they can like compete in collaboration. If none of this is making sense to you, that's okay. It doesn't make sense to me either, but at least you're not the one speaking about it. But now we're jumping forward in time because all of that started in 1873, and now we're in 1902 because now we're introducing another character. I'm a huge fan of multiple characters, but like my limit's like 10 important ones. And I feel like we've already surpassed 10 important ones. This character's name is Bailey Clark, and he's attending the circus for the first time. But not really, because the first time he actually snuck in on a dare. It's an uncomfortable amount left. Anyway, so the first time he went, he snuck in and got caught by one of the performers, and so she gave him her glove as like as evidence that he attended and actually did the dare. And so that was the first time, but now he's here again to actually watch the circus. During this visit, he meets Isabel, who tells him that basically he's important and that he wants to find Poppet. Well, he finds Poppet and they become friends. So the circus is really taking off, and there's a clock in the middle that everyone loves, and it's made by this guy, Tyson, I don't know. He made the clock. It's super cool. Well, this guy is the reason that the circus gets like a kind of like cult following of rêveurs, which I think rêve means dreamer. Aha, I was right, it does mean dreamers, which basically means that my 2 years of French in high school paid off. Anywho, this like cult-like following all wear black and white with like a little dash of red. But enough of all that guy, because I don't really understand his story. I don't know, but he keeps in touch with Celia, and they're like friends and via notes and letters and stuff until he dies. Spoiler alert. As you all could probably predict with your eyes closed and never having read the story, Marco and Celia fall in love. And that's problematic because they're in a competition that has severe consequences. But here's the thing. Marco knows that Celia is his opponent, but Celia doesn't know that Marco's her opponent until they're at like a little cafe and she leaves with his umbrella and she's not getting as wet as she should be. But obviously Mr. A.H. and Hector don't approve of their apprentices. Obviously they don't approve of their apprentices' relationship. They don't like that Marco and Celia like each other. But then Hector dies and is now providing Celia with guidance from beyond. Marco tells Mr. A.H. that he's in love with Celia, and then Isabel overhears this, and so she's like, I'm out. But while that's like, good for you, sister, like you don't need that kind of headache or heartbreak, it's also terrible because she had put this protective spell over the circus, and when she leaves, she undoes that. So now the circus doesn't have that anymore, and now all the members are in peril. And then at some point, Chandrish is searching the grounds for Mr. A.H. because Hector's ghost told him that you should kill him. And so when he's going to do that, he throws a knife, but it doesn't hit Mr. A.H. It hits the Tyson guy who made the clock. And so now he dies, which I said earlier, but now it's just coming around full circle. Ugh, it's a lot. But now is also the time that Marco and Celia realize that this is a competition only one comes out of alive. But now is where we also learn that Tsukiko was one of Mr. AH's competitors, and she won. She won because her opponent committed suicide by walking into the flames, and so now she's convinced Marco to do the same. But of course, Celia can't live with that, so she jumps into the fire too. So now they both get burned, which does not kill them per se. Because really, they're not dead and they're not alive. They just kind of get like more involved in the circus. And so basically their competition comes to a stalemate and all of it is over. But now that the two of them have jumped into the center fire, the circus is like over, and so the only way for the circus to continue is if they have a new caretaker. And that is where Poppet comes into play, because Poppet thinks Bailey's important, and it is because he is. He is important because Celia and Margot search him out, and he's like, yeah, I'll be the caretaker of the circus. Dope. And so the circus lives on. So that's the circus, and here's my breakdown. Cover design is going to be a 3 out of 5. It's cool. The colors are there, like I get it. And like the clock is there. And it's pretty. But it just doesn't really overly wow me, if you know what I'm saying. Characters are a 3 out of 5. There are so many characters. It kind of gets a little confusing. None of them really have normal names. And you get to know some of them really well. But again, I kind of feel like a lot of them are underdeveloped, and if you're gonna have a lot of characters, you need to have really developed characters. The plot I'll give a 4 to, because I kind of really liked the idea of this story. This circus competition that is supposed to end in death and is all sorts of magical. I love the idea. The ending is a 3 because while Bailey does get to inherit the circus, which is pretty cool because the only place he ever really fit in was the circus, it doesn't really do it for me that they both die, and like, yes, they're like not dead, not alive. It's just, I didn't feel super fulfilled after reading it. The book drop for me might come across as harsh, and I apologize to all of those who loved this novel. I was not really one of them. The book drop for me is a 2, mainly because I have a hard time finding it. I guess the book drop is when Marco and Celia jump into the fire together and they end up not dead but not alive either, and they're still together, but that's not really a book drop for me. I'm sorry. So that gives The Night Circus a solid 3 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry to Erin Morgenstern if that was a little harsh, but if you have a book you want reviewed, drop them in the comments below. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.